Hi, everybody in the chat room. This is me driving and listening to MSNBC as we go along. How are you? Figure I'd give you something else to have on besides Trump once he goes live, and hopefully it won't entail me getting into an accident. Although, because it's LA and traffic being what it is, I'm probably going to be going so slow. Even if I were involved in an accident, it would probably more than likely be like being rear-ended by a pothead in a Target parking lot. Like everybody going 2 miles an hour. Dunk! Oh my God, that's it. So I'm gonna have the audio on from MSNBC. Sorry for the bounciness. I'm not driving over all-terrain stuff. It's just the thing that my phone hangs on is a little bumpy, and there's no, for whatever reason, the YouTube thing does not correct the, it doesn't have a stabilizer. It doesn't use the camera's stabilizer the way shooting video does. Somebody should fix that, I'm just saying. But in the meantime, and I'm sorry if I miss what you guys are saying, if you chat with me, I'm not gonna see a lot of that. What's up? Because I'm not gonna read and drive. That would be wrong. So just put up with that. I'll look back later though. So whatever you write, more than likely I'll see it later in the, when I re-air this. But we're getting close. We're 2 minutes away from the Stephen Miller written Trump speech that I'm gonna guess will be either a Adderall fueled sniff fest or a droney depressing attempt at being presidential, or a vacillation between those two things, because you can never tell. And I'm hoping for a who's on first level discourse back and forth between Schumer and Pelosi when they do it, that it's a full-on Daily Show scripted comedy sketch would be my goal. And thanks, I'm on my way to a meeting, so I've got a suit on. There you go. We're pretty close, we're a minute away. Although I don't think, my guess also is that Trump will not be on time. My guess is there'll be at least a 45 seconds of making you wait, maybe. There we go. They're so cute. Maybe.
Thank all of you at home for joining us this hour. Very happy to have you with us. Let me give you a sense of how the next hour is going to go.
Well,
President Trump's first primetime address from the Oval Office will start momentarily.
Momentarily.
We're expecting it to be short, under 10 minutes. Then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and the Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer are going to give a rebuttal.
That's right. Hi, 45 seconds, more like 45 minutes, right?
Follow very quickly after the end of the president's speech.
Good evening, welcome. Expecting we need a wall to keep all the people who overstay their visas out of the country. We need a wall to stop all the fentanyl that arrives in the mailbox from China. We need a wall to protect us from all the East Indian, Eastern European, and Canadians who come here and work in our film industry and don't leave immediately when their visa's up, stay for like 3 months while they apply for a new visa, which is technically illegal, but nobody would prosecute. We need a wall. We need a wall that's 600 feet inside the U.S. border in some places, so that even if we have a wall, if you're standing on U.S. soil, you can ask for asylum, and we have to give it to you, even though there's a wall. We'd have to go get you. We have to climb our own wall to go get you and bring you in. Maybe. Here we go.
My fellow Americans.
My fellow Americans.
Tonight I am speaking to you because there is a growing humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border. Every day, Customs and Border Patrol agents encounter thousands of illegal immigrants trying to enter our country.
That's always true.
We are out of space to hold them.
We're out of space.
No way to promptly return
We're gonna
back
put up
home to their
a
country.
giant
America
no vacancy sign. I've skipped the wall.
Who enrich our society and contribute to our nation. But all Americans are hurt by uncontrolled illegal migration. It strains public resources and drives down jobs and wages. Among those hardest hit,
immigration at the southern border is at a 45-year low.
Our southern border is a pipeline for vast quantities of illegal drugs, including meth, heroin, cocaine, and fentanyl.
He's sniffing. It's Adderall.
Are killed by heroin alone.
No, they're not. They're killed by fentanyl, which comes from China in the mail.
Southern border. More Americans will die from drugs this year than were killed in the entire Vietnam War. In the last
that's true, but more people by double that will be killed by bad medical interactions. Like 130,000 people will die because the doctor gave them the wrong pills. Build a wall around doctors.
Crimes and 4,000 violent killings. Over the years, thousands of Americans
Snorted some Adderall right before.
By those who illegally entered our country, and thousands more lives will be lost if we don't act right now.
Right now, we gotta build a wall immediately, even though...
A crisis of the heart and a crisis of the soul. Last month, 20,000 migrant children were illegally brought into the United States, a dramatic increase. These children are used as human pawns by vicious coyotes and ruthless gangs. 1 in 3 women are sexually assaulted.
So the women and children have to be left on the other side of the border because those are the vicious coyotes.
By far of our broken system. This is the tragic reality of illegal immigration on our southern border. This is the cycle of human suffering
that a wall will do nothing about.
My administration has presented Congress with a detailed proposal to secure the border and stop the criminal gangs, drug smugglers, and human traffickers. It's a tremendous problem. Our proposal was developed by law enforcement professionals and border agents at the Department of Homeland Security.
What?
These are the resources they have requested to properly perform their mission and keep America safe. In fact, safer than ever before. The proposal from Homeland Security,
immigration across the border is at a 45-year low, and drugs, the main drug that's killing people, is coming through the mail from China.
We have requested more agents, immigration judges, and bed space to process the sharp rise in unlawful migration fueled by our...
That's already in the bill he refused to sign.
The plan also contains an urgent request for humanitarian assistance and medical support. Furthermore, we have asked Congress to close border security loopholes so that illegal immigrant children can be safely and humanely returned back home. Finally, as part of an overall approach to border security,
so that children seeking asylum here can be dumped back in their gang-ridden countries that are on fire currently because it's not our problem.
Of Democrats,
because it's a crisis of the heart.
Barrier rather than a concrete wall. This barrier is absolutely critical to border security. It's also what our professionals at the border want and need. This is just common sense. The border wall would very quickly pay for itself. The cost of
Mexico is supposed to pay for it.
$500 billion a year. Vastly more than the $5.7 billion we have requested from Congress. The wall will also be paid for indirectly by the great new trade deal we have made with Mexico. Senator Chuck Schumer, who you will be hearing from later tonight, has repeatedly supported a physical barrier in the past, along with many other Democrats. They changed their mind only after I was elected president. Democrats and
Obama really wanted that wall, and Schumer was the guy holding it back because we needed to build a wall across the Rio Grande.
Border agents with the tools they desperately need to protect our families and our nation.
Our families.
The federal government remains shut down for one reason, and one reason only, because Democrats will not fund border security. My administration...
Wow, the sniffing is at an all-time high.
to help
No pun
those
intended.
impacted by the situation. But the only solution is for Democrats to pass a spending bill that defends our borders and reopens the government. This situation could be solved in a 45-minute meeting. I have invited congressional leadership to the White House tomorrow to get this done. Hopefully, we can rise above partisan politics
and pay for my walls so that Rush Limbaugh will get off my back.
Some have suggested a barrier is immoral. Then why do wealthy politicians build walls, fences, and gates around their homes? They don't build walls because they hate the people on the outside, but because they love the people on the inside.
Whoa.
The only thing that is immoral...
We don't love the people on the outside of our gated communities. I know this because I've lived in one most of my life. That's why I have a doorman. It's not because I hate people in New York, because I love the Russian mobsters who rent from me.
When a young police officer in California was savagely murdered in cold blood by an illegal alien who just came across the border.
No, he'd been here for a while.
The life of an American hero was stolen by someone who had no right to be in our country. Day after day, precious lives...
Wall wouldn't have stopped him, but okay.
Those who have violated our borders. In California,
sniffing.
An Air Force veteran was raped, murdered, and beaten to death with a hammer by an illegal alien with a long criminal history. In Georgia, an illegal alien was recently charged with murder for killing, beheading, and dismembering his neighbor. In Maryland, MS-13 gang members who arrived
that guy flew into the country
as unaccompanied minors were arrested and charged last year after viciously stabbing and beating a 16-year-old girl.
Sniff.
Over the last several years,
listen to the sniffing after almost every sentence.
Whose loved ones were stolen by illegal immigration. I've held the hands of the weeping mothers and embraced...
A wall will not stop these kind of people.
So sad, so terrible. I will never forget the pain in their eyes, the tremble in their voices, and the sadness gripping their souls. How much more American blood must we shed before Congress does its job? For those who refuse to compromise in the name of border security, I would ask, imagine if it was your child, your husband, or your wife.
Imagine if it was your husband, your wife, or your child who was seeking asylum in a first world country after fleeing a war zone, and they needed water to get across the border so they could legally ask for asylum, which they're allowed to do, but the border position had been shut down because the president ordered it, and the ICE agents were dumping water onto the ground so that you wouldn't have those resources, so when your child arrives, they are dehydrated and die. That's not working its way into the speech, I'm guessing.
About whether we fulfill our sacred duty to the American citizens we serve. When I took the oath of office, I swore to protect our country. And that is...
From everyone but Russia.
I will always do. So help me God. Thank you and good night.
President of the United States.
No God bless America. That's interesting. Curious. Now we'll see what what Pelosi and Schumer respond.
Breaking new ground, repeating the various strains of argument that he has relied on since the earliest days of his campaign.
They're sending rapists, they're murderers, they're drug dealers, and some are very nice people, I'm sure.
Explicitly saying Mexico will pay for it. He said the wall will pay for it. The wall will pay for the wall. It will pay for itself.
Yeah.
The president also.
So that's fun. Hi.
In his words, is a
what about God bless you?
Of illegal drugs.
Yeah, that's what I said. Like he didn't say good night and God bless America. I guess he's gotten a special dispensation from the evangelicals so that he doesn't have to say it.
Majority of hard drugs coming in, even those.
He's a man of Jesus without without actually behaving in any of the behaviors that would matter to Jesus. That's one of the pass that he gets from evangelicals is in and of itself a miracle of forgiveness.
Immigrants being terrible criminals who are coming into the United States to rape and murder Americans, essentially, in the president's telling, for pleasure because it's in their nature. It's the sort of argument that the president made the very first day he came down that escalator in Trump Tower, and sort of shocked the Republican world when he announced that he would be running for the Republican.
So how much American blood will be shed because we don't have a wall to keep out the murderous, drug-dealing hordes of rapists? That's essentially the case. Wow.
This speech tonight from the president, you and I were talking about whether or not this might be new ground. I heard it as the same thing he's always said.
Yes, although there was a lot more emphasis in that first part of the speech on the sort of threat inflation and creating.
The beginning, it was like a humanitarian crisis. It's a it's a crisis of the heart. And then devolves into, because the heart pumps blood all over the floor when every American will be stabbed to death by an MS-13 member.
That's about 3.0. I mean, we were at Slats 10 days ago, so I think we're just at a steel barrier. It changes every week. He doesn't seem to be able to keep track of what it is he's proposing on the.
You don't have a wall because you hate people outside. You have a wall because you love the people inside. That's going to be his big takeaway phrase. That's the one that Stephen Miller and those guys were patting themselves on the back about.
There's not a crisis. Border crossings at the southern border are at a.
You don't have a wall because you care about the people on the inside. You have a wall because you don't care about the people on the outside of it. We have a wall around Mar-a-Lago for a reason. We raised the cost of joining Mar-a-Lago $1,000 once I became president for a reason. We don't allow cameras to film except when I want them to see me showing classified information to a foreign leader. Unless we want to. Hold on, I'm driving. Here we go, the Pelosi Schumer.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to speak directly to the American people tonight about how we can end this shutdown and meet the needs of the American people. Sadly, much of what we heard from President Trump throughout this senseless shutdown has been full of misinformation and even malice. The president.
Yeah, malice. And by the way, if you're questioning any of the details about what he's saying or anything that I've said or whatever, watch last weekend's Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide broadcast. I went through line by line every single lie that they put out about border security and border crossing from the Trump administration. Reasoning for they put out, all the fake news that the Trump administration put out to try and gin up support for this wall. I went through it piece by piece. It's almost 2 hours long, and you can go through all of it. So,
for the health, safety, and well-being of the American people, and withhold the paychecks of 800,000 innocent workers across the nation, many of them you promise, and children at the border are not a security threat. They are a humanitarian challenge.
I think I'm back on.
A challenge that President Trump's own cruel and counterproductive policies have only deepened. And the fact is, President Trump must stop holding the American people hostage, must stop manufacturing a crisis, and must reopen the government. Thank you. Leader Schumer?
Thank you, Speaker Pelosi. My fellow Americans, we address you tonight for one reason only. The President of the United States, having failed to get Mexico to pay for his ineffective, unnecessary border wall, and unable to convince the Congress or the American people to foot the bill, has shut down the government. American democracy doesn't work that way. We don't govern by temper tantrum. No president should pound the table and demand he gets his way, or else government shuts down, hurting millions of Americans who are treated as leverage. Tonight, and throughout this debate and throughout his presidency, President Trump has appealed to fear, not facts, division, not unity.
I'm back, sorry. I'm driving through the canyon. This is very LA, the whole thing.
There is no excuse for hurting millions of Americans over a policy difference.
Sure, there may not be an excuse, but there's a reason. If he doesn't do this, he's afraid his more virulent supporters, of which is that the only group really that he has sought to support him, you know, during this entire presidency. He doesn't reach out or try to cross over to anybody else. He knows they'll leave if he doesn't at least look like he went down in flames building the wall. By the way, this will end with him pretending the wall is being built. Even if we reopen it, they pass a bill that is veto-proof and reopens the government, he's going to say his leverage increased the amount of money for border security, and if it wasn't for him, we were going to pay less, which isn't the fact and won't be the fact. It'll still be less than the initial offer he'd had when he could have gotten DACA through. Same time.
Statue of Liberty, not a 30-foot wall. So our suggestion...
Oh, there we go. The symbol of the country is the Statue of Liberty, not a 30-foot wall. I think that's solid imagery.
Over border security, but end this shutdown now. Thank you.
Okay.
What amounts to a Democratic...
So they didn't say good night and God bless America either. So nobody's saying God bless America right now. I'll say it though. I'd like to thank you all for joining me as a diversion. Enjoy back to your regularly scheduled programming. And now I'm going to drive without streaming like an adult. And I want to say thank you all for viewing. I appreciate your attention to this very important issue. And good night. God bless you. And in the immortal words of Dave Allen, good night, and may your God go with you. God bless the United States of America. All right, now I'll just stay on because I can't. Just like, because touching the thing and shutting it off will more dangerous than driving. I don't know where the button is to stop streaming, so I'm gonna be careful. Yeah. See that red light? See how red my face is? That's not. That's because I'm in traffic. There you go. Good night, and may your God go with you. It's the Dave Allen sign. Everybody give the Dave Allen sign. Thanks, Nicholas.
Smart, effective border security solutions. So from the Democrats tonight, we're hearing, whatever you think about border security, Mr. President, we can fight about that. Let's reopen the government. Both Democrats and Republicans want that. You are the sticking point here, not leaders from either party. Nicole Wallace and Chris Hayes are here with me on Senate.
Yeah, so it's funny that one of the things that really stands out to me about the last few years especially is that Democrats were always painted as the pro-criminal, you know, anti-law and order party because they believed in victims' rights, but they also believed in the rights of the accused. And you know, there was always a big focus in my adult life anyways, from the Democratic Party about how evenly the law was applied, especially when it came to drug laws. You know, either the disparity between cocaine and crack convictions and the like, or mandatory minimums for things like pot possession and the like, used effectively as you know, to wedge communities against each other and make sure that, you know, more minorities get put in jail than rich Wall Street white guys. And over the last couple of years, one of the biggest changes has been that in Trump's attacks on law enforcement because of his illegality, because of his criminality, because of his, you know, palling around with money launderers and human traffickers and Russian gangsters that he has both, you know, received, you know, boatloads of money from over the years in the form of loans, but also has allowed to operate out of Trump Tower and you know, in New York and Miami and the like, because of his criminality is so elevated beyond, you know, the street level crime that most of us talk about when we talk about law and order issues, that it's made the Democratic Party much more pro law enforcement and pro FBI than it ever has been. And it might have created an accidental balancing act that needed to happen, a correction sort of within the conversation. And I've always said that in the Democratic Party, you can have an entire conversation from the most conservative to the most liberal, legitimate governing philosophy anyways, without ever incorporating what passes for conservatism in the Republican Party, because it's really, they've devolved into a mix of an oligarchical libertarian wish fest and religious nutcases. These are essentially the two bifurcated parties within the Republicans. And you can't, I don't know why anybody doesn't realize that if you elect people to office who hate government or run on government can't do anything right, eventually they will get in office and prove that to be true. Because people would rather be right than happy. And so the Republican Party will get into office and prove the point that government is useless. Why would they do any different? What impetus is there for any modern Republican to get into office and show how well government can do something? The only, and that's why Trump got elected in a lot of ways, because he's not running on I can run the government perfectly and make government work well. He's running on only I can save you language, and which is outside the democratic and federal system that we exist. It's a cult of personality argument, not an effective government argument. And anybody who tries to actually run the government in an effective, long-term strategic way is called an elite or a member of the establishment by him and his ilk, because the argument is not for competency. The argument is for almost genetic legitimacy. That's Trump's entire argument is in some ways Nietzsche's Superman, which is, I think, an apropos argument for him to make, considering that my argument has been that Nietzsche actually wrote most of his philosophy while he was in the heat throes of syphilis, in a couple of stages of it, and the works of Nietzsche are the kinds of works that syphilis, if it could hold a pen, would write. If syphilis could write its own manifesto, it would write the works of Nietzsche. It can't be. Let's see. I'm not by the Buena Park Mall. Don't make me read while I'm driving. What are they saying?
More primal. I think it's because it's Trump, right?
We like Nicole Wallace, by the way.
A close Trump ally said, I said, what's he doing? It was the maddest.
You've seen he's lifting. That's right.
Out of control. And I said, what's he doing? He said he lives in abject terror of his base and Robert Mueller. And so I think you can't control this one, right? You can't control what Robert Mueller's doing, but the base he can keep. The base feels that way. Feels exactly as Chris just described. They feel that intensity, and so you can keep them ginned up.
But don't you? So the base intensity on this though is something that doesn't always respond to the same amount of stimulus, right? You have to keep upping it a little
more activity, right?
Right, and so there is.
Well, it's a drug.
I mean, there's the shutdown.
Hatred is and fear are both drugs. They wear off. As a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons why it's good to watch horror movies. One of the why scary stories and horror movies, both movies where a protagonist survives, like a Halloween kind of story, or a story where the protagonist does not. That the more tragic ones. There's a reason for watching those. A couple of reasons is it kicks your brain into out of fight or flight and into a solution mode, because you're watching it from a safe distance to some degree. And if you found yourself in a horrible situation, your brain would be more adept at kicking into a safety point. Because the more horror movies and scary movies you watch, the more your nervous system sort of gets like annoyed at the idea of being scared, and eventually you move into solution space. That's why we tell scary stories on a tribal level, is to teach you to deal with scary situations by not freaking out as much over time. It's a safe way to experience a negative circumstance and eventually build your strength up in the face of it to be able to, if you are confronted with a horrifying situation, you move out of panic mode and into solution mode faster. That's why society's done it. The downside of that is if you use fear and hatred to motivate someone, you have to keep priming the pump to get it to work. Otherwise, it will just stop. You know, eventually people will recognize that, you know, it's not that scary. And that's been the problem with this, you know, there's the caravan storyline, is that what came of the caravan was not a rise in the number of MS-13 gang members in the United States. As a matter of fact, those have gone down. The what's actually happened is watching the caravan, going, watch it, the caravan's going to come here, and there's going to be a bunch of scary people, and they're all going to commit more crimes and murder more people. And the reality is, what's the story that's come from the MS-13 or the caravan story? What's come of that? Well, dead children, and mothers and aunts and uncles and fathers and other people separated from their children trying to get them back. That's been the volume of stories around it, because that's been the volume of experience by comparison. So you can't, you know, trying to keep priming that pump, which, and by the way, I didn't watch the thing, obviously. We were riding along, and I've been talking about it as we've been, you know, as we streamed through it. But you could tell this was not one of Trump's, you know, sort of fire-breathing, invigorated speeches. It was a miserable swing and a miss. You could tell from the sniffing.
We have to watch it and listen to it, but it doesn't hurt our country. You know, those people say ridiculous things about the dear leader, and they have to go home and face their wives or their kids. No one's hurt or injured in that exercise. People are hurting now. Yeah. The economy will take a hit now. This is not funny anymore.
Chris Hayes, Nicole Wallace, my friends, thank you very much for being here with us tonight. As you said, Chris, I think actually the best pundit point I have heard over the course of the entire day was, this is weird. This is actually truly weird, but having you guys here makes it better. Thank you. Thanks, Rachel. You know, 3 days after the president was elected, the ACLU wrote a letter.
The sniffing, though. Am I off base that there was a lot of sniffing? I don't know if some of you watched it on television while it was kind of co-running while I was listening to it on the radio. You know, whenever they've given him, like, he's taken a hit of Adderall and he's down to Diet Coke. I think he missed the Diet Coke on this one, or he didn't do the Adderall bump and Diet Coke soon enough. So he's going to be manic and tweeting in about 10 minutes because caffeine takes about 20 minutes to enter your system and start kicking in. Too much Coke, the other kind. No, I think it's the idea is that he's been snorting speed since the 80s, and Adderall is now his drug of choice, which is a form of, you know, clinical meth, by the way. You know, so did it seem that way on camera? I'm curious. But I think he did his little Adderall bump right before he went on, not recognizing that it takes a little while to enter your system, especially when your system is older and more padded than perhaps it used to be. Yeah, dude, we see he was making a turn here, plenty of time. So, you know, that's my personal theory, is that he didn't take his drug of choice early enough for it to kick in. And that's only going, I don't have any Adderall experience, but I know for a fact that, you know, just from all the stuff I've read about, like coffee naps, where you drink a cup of coffee and take a 20-minute power nap, you'll wake up in about 20 minutes when the caffeine works its way into your system. That's one of the, you know, the biohack ways of taking a 20-minute nap when you're, you know, you need to only sleep for 20 minutes. The caffeine itself will wake you up because it takes about 20 minutes to get in there. We should watch for tweets in about 10 minutes.
Right. But there's a humanitarian crisis that he has created at the border.
Yeah, this is okay. So this is the language we've heard all day about this stuff. So we'll be back into the conversation on the news anyways that you've heard again and again about this. There is hello, bus. It's a, you know, my theory has been, and this is, I'm curious to see, and you guys can tell me on Twitter after the fact, because like I said, it's hard, I'm not reading while I'm driving, I'm just talking like you're a passenger in the car, we're just chatting as we drive, well, I might read a little bit at stoplights, but I'll try not to get distracted and honked at. But my theory is that this is Trump's wag the dog moment, but he's run out of wars that he can actually get into. You know, we've in America's history, we've had a bunch of situations where America gets in little dust-up wars, little theater moments. You know, these dropping in on a beach to save some college students, or Iraq is slant drilling into Kuwait, so we need to have a 21-day war about that, or these little. Because we're so engaged in Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria and Yemen and all these other places, there is no little phony war you can start. And so if you're going to wag the dog to draw attention away from your, from the fact that your campaign chairman just admitted that he was in constant contact with the Russians, giving them polling data from the campaign, and then that he had a meeting after he'd been let go from the campaign and Trump was in office, that he was basically still engaged in collusion with Russia after the fact. He was still acting as a conduit, even though he wasn't on the campaign anymore, and that and Trump had become president. He was still fulfilling the contract that was basically signed while he was working on the campaign. With the blessing of Trump and Jared Kushner and et al., that entire group, and Don Jr. and everybody that had worked on the campaign. Don't drop your Grey Poupon. I would not. I am on the way to a meeting. This is true. Here, hold on. Postmates. Yeah, I'm driving for Uber. There you go. Now you know where I'm going. You can peek and see.
I declare myself to have, I'm going to get my wall built that way. Mm-hmm. And so while I do that, Congress can do whatever they want in terms of opening the government, but I will get this wall built. The reason I think that might have actually been...
Trump would have had an argument for the wall is going to be paid for by the trade deal if he hadn't doubled the deficit since the Obama administration. The deficit, the yearly deficit of the U.S. government is now double what it was under Obama. It was going down under Obama, and it is now twice. There is no arguing that fact. There is no arguing that since Trump got in office, the deficit in year to year, the yearly deficit of the United States government is double what it was under Obama. And the Republican tax cut basically erased any discretionary budget money he might have had to pay for anything, much less a wall. How can host the new cash cab? That's right. So, you got 2 more choices. This will be the... All right. So, who was the 3rd guitar player to join Kiss? Here's a hint. He never got to tour. He had 3 shows and had to stop. Who is it? Is there anybody in the... All I know about Cash Cab is that he constantly is sitting up. So I don't know if they're telling him to sit up in his ear because when he sits back in the seat, the cameras bounce around a little bit. I mean, obviously that's a problem that I have. Don't read. I'm only reading at stops. Ace. No, Ace was first. It's Mark St. John. It was Ace, then Vinnie Vincent, then Mark St. John. Mark St. John never got to tour, and he was replaced by Bruce Kulick. He did 3 shows, and he had carpal tunnel, and his hands blew up like balloons, and he never got to tour. There you go. Is Cash Cap still on? I don't think so, actually.
Workers on the ground in the Bronx and Queens so they can process the needs of our constituents.
By the way, when they talk about the immigration money that isn't going, you know, like there are not immigration judges right now. There's a lot of funds for immigration naturalization services and the like. When you consider that the vast majority of people who are here illegally are people who overstay their visas, the processing of those people when they break the law and when they stay here is not being done. Those people are being allowed to stay in longer because of what Trump is doing. And as you know, because he doesn't want to process asylum seekers, he's allowing people who strictly overstay their visas just for business, you know, for financial reasons. He's allowing them to stay. So, what a bunch of crap.
Are acting more American than any person who seeks to keep them out ever will be.
Are you at all
I don't know what the beginning of that sentence was.
Not dissuaded, I guess is the wrong word, dismayed or discouraged by the fact that the president has been saying the same untrue things about immigrant crime?
No, because it's the only thing that works for him. Saying that they're murderers and rapists and you know, and smuggling drugs is, I mean, it's classic Reagan era stuff. You know, that's been around forever. You like, thanks, appreciate that. Try. It's we get suited up on Tuesdays. Gotta wear my first Tuesday of every month. I'll be in a suit. Count on it. And the issue is not, and for the record, I mean, I almost said nobody is calling for open borders. Nobody is calling for, you know, free moving in, because somebody in this era is calling for everything. You know, nobody can say nobody wants blah blah blah, because there's enough, because of, you know, the variety of human beings that exist in the United States, much less on planet Earth at this point. Somebody's calling for something somewhere, almost, you know, everywhere. You know, and the same people who are like, liberals want complete open borders, you know, totally ignore the number of libertarians who don't believe that the government should own property at all, and that national borders should always be overtaken by private purchase, and that anybody should be able to buy any amount of land in any country that they want without any limitation by the government of that country. Never mind the fact that, you know, I mean, that's a fantasy. We'll just, you know, like, I get on a diatribe about the goofy aspect of libertarianism at some point in the future. But somebody has called for open borders. Like, we need borders to be completely open. People should be able to flow freely from country to country without blah, blah, blah. But nobody in a legitimate position of power is calling for that. They're just calling for regular, normal immigration services that are within the values of a country that recognizes that some people legally come here for asylum and other people come here and want to take advantage of our legal system and the like. And you have to have competent people in positions of power and governance to differentiate between the two. Not go, we need a wall to keep everybody out because I don't know, I can't tell one brown person from the next, which is really the argument he's making. That there are no asylum seekers, that all of it's garbage, that everybody should just stay out, we're full. Which is just goofy, because at the same time he's saying, there's lots of companies that need workers and we're not allowing them in, like, we're not full. And the people who are coming across who are seeking, you know, asylum, who might need assistance, only need assistance if they're in a situation where they can't get employed, don't have, you know, legal status to work, you know, and if you establish a situation where asylum seekers quickly become, you know, and legitimately become tax-paying citizens who are participating in our democracy, to the, you know, even in stages, you eliminate that, hold on, I'm turning. You make sure that you can tell that there's a difference between people who simply just want to come here, take financial advantage of the country, versus people who want to come here and contribute to the society. But the truth is, Trump just wants rich people with degrees to be the only people that can come to the United States, instead of people coming to the United States who really believe in the American dream, or believe in the promise of America, or want to raise their children in a participatory democracy, so that they can grow up, go to college, and become a valuable member of the society. You know, it's literally, and this is Trump's transactional way of living. Carl Esker, I didn't see the beginning of that. So anyways, so hi chat room, I just want to say hi. You guys are wonderful, by the way. I can't see all the chats going on, but yeah.